All right, everybody, I'm going to react to Nick's tears. He just dropped on YouTube like a couple minutes ago. I'm going to keep doing these videos because my friends seem to like them. So I got the wrong mouse, got too many computers here.
And Seahawks who have been added to the eliminated tiers. Maybe next year we'll do a better job with that. All right, now to the actual tiers. One game short. Man, it's going to be a long offseason for the Falcons and Dolphins if it turns out the way I think it's going to. Falcons are going to be thinking about the fact that they lost to the Saints when the Saints were in the midst of a free fall.
Yeah. What are you guys doing?
They had the Chargers on the ropes and couldn't just get to 20 points. And for the Dolphins, when Tua came back, they lost to Arizona by 1 and lost to Buffalo in a game that gets kind of lost, but it was Tua played well, they played well. Buffalo, it's a field goal with a few seconds left or maybe at the gun to win that game. And I think that's going to be the difference for these.
I was at that game. It was exciting. That was the game where I realized the Bills are in trouble this postseason. That second half, the Dolphins came out and the Bills couldn't stop them. They only won because they got the ball last and they hit a 61-yard field goal. Didn't realize it at the time, but yeah. Fast forward a few weeks and the Bills defense is in trouble.
Teams, because even if they both win this week, they don't control their own destiny. Scary, except on Sundays. You know what? This Cincinnati narrative is going to drive me crazy. It's going to drive me insane. I watched a segment very similar to the one we did earlier this week on a competing network. It was in an airport. TV channel wouldn't change. And they,
He doesn't fly anywhere. He's always in New York, so he was not in an airport. I call bullshit.
They in back-to-back segments did how scary Cincinnati is and how other than Buffalo and Baltimore, they're the scariest team in the AFC. And the person making that argument in the very next segment picked them to lose to Pittsburgh this week, which is kind of what a lot of people believe. They're terrifying. They're dangerous. I can't trust them to beat the Steelers this weekend, though. And so I just, again, nobody has been a bigger proponent for Joe Burrow over the last few years outside of Cincinnati than this guy. And I think he's been excellent. But the team is not good. He's good. People conflate how good your offense is with how scary you are as a team. And as Wilds would tell us,
defense wins championships.
Thank you, Kevin Wilds.
Still scary, don't they?
Okay, all right. Limping to the finish line. Denver and Houston, not great. So, awesome start.
Denver, really, you should have clinched by now. The fact that we're going into the final week of the season and they didn't clinch yet, I mean, come on. What are you guys doing? You still got to beat the Chiefs, even though it'll be the backups. Still got to beat them. Weirder things have happened in the last game of the season when a playoff-bound team loses to a team's backups. I've seen it before.
For Denver, awesome start to the year and really until these last couple weeks. Now, they desperately need a win against the Chiefs' backups to lock up their playoff berth. Houston, I don't really know if it was ever great for them this season, but right now they do look like they're coming off their absolute low point, and they're in a weird spot.
No, they look pretty shitty. I think, so you're going to have Baltimore or Pittsburgh as the 4 or 5. So I think whoever is the 5 is going to beat Houston to move on. I'm not high on Houston at all.
Because you had your worst game of the year, and now you're probably not even going to play your guys. So it's going to have been quite some time before when you get to the playoffs, big gap between a last game you feel really good about and when you're playing in round 1 probably against Pittsburgh, maybe against the Chargers. Technically maybe against the Ravens, but that's not going to happen. Gotta win a round. This is about Mike Tomlin and this is about Justin Herbert. So listen, I love Mike Tomlin. Feels like everybody loves Mike Tomlin. Except for the people in Pittsburgh who are very split on Mike Tomlin. Because it has been so long since they won a playoff game. There's not a lot of examples in NFL history.
So I moved away from Los Angeles a few years ago. I worked for this other company. I left that company 5 years ago. They were the Steelers fans that worked there were ready to move on from Mike Tomlin then. It's been 5 years, 6 seasons. So, yeah, they just don't have coaching changes in Pittsburgh. They don't have hot seats there. Mike Tomlin's there for life.
For coaches going this long without winning a playoff game and keeping their job. Now, nobody thinks Tomlin's job should be in jeopardy again, except for some loud voices in Pittsburgh, most notably my buddy Andrew Filipponi, but set that aside. But you got to win a round this year, especially if you get Houston in round one. Yeah, you win this weekend against Cincinnati, then you're almost locked into that 5 seed. Technically, you can get the division. You got to beat Houston. And for the Chargers, it's tough. It's going to be tough. You're going to be on the road. But we need to see some result now that Herbert has an excellent coach and an excellent defense. Yeah. I don't think it's too much to ask. Next, bright future, murky present. And by that, I mean, I just think both these teams, because of their draw.
Let me just pause it for a second. The Chargers are not going to Baltimore to beat the Ravens. It's not going to happen.
Or staring at a likely very short playoff tenure, potentially not making it out of the first weekend. I'd be shocked if Washington, whoever is the 7 seed, I should say, I'd be shocked if they make it out of round 1. I don't think Philly's losing in round 1. And whoever's the 6 seed is probably going to Tampa or to the Rams. I really like where both these teams are positioned moving forward. And I think for Washington, this was objectively a great season. So I think the future's bright. I don't think this year's playoff run is going to be long for either one of these teams. More than a spoiler, I think either of these teams could be in the NFC Championship game. I think the Bucs last year made it to the divisional round. The Rams last year lost by a point to Detroit. I still think had they won that game, they could have ended up playing the Chiefs in the Super Bowl. And while the Rams' offense hasn't been humming as of late, after being 1-4, they've won 8 out of 10. And the Bucs' offense is absolutely on fire and has to stay on fire because they need to win this weekend. They need to get Mike Evans his 1,000 yards.
I think Green Bay should be more than a spoiler. I think they're a little higher than what he said. Green Bay, if they end up playing Tampa or the Rams in the first round, I like their chances. And then they'll probably end up in a division matchup against Minnesota or Detroit. They play them in the division. I like Green Bay. Green Bay could be the upset team in the NFC.
Steve Nash Suns, some conference finals, some what ifs due to injuries.
Yeah, what ifs due to injuries. That's the story of the Lions this year.
And just some really bad defenses. That was the Steve Nash Suns. Right now, it kind of feels like this year's Lions because they're all kind of wrapped into one. Made the conference finals a year ago, felt like this was a better team. Injuries, started to really catch up to you to where now it's a race to 40 every time they play. And I don't think that's sustainable. And I also sadly think the Lions season could be over in 9 days. As great as it's been, they lose Sunday night. They're going to be on the road in round 1 against one of those teams on the row right beneath them. Not an easy matchup. It's not really their fault, but I think that's where we're headed. Brew, I don't think you're going to like this, but it's fair.
Like this.
AFC Championship game or bust. Here's the deal. Here's why.
I think that's a pretty reasonable statement.
I know you feel like they're Super Bowl or bust. I get it.
Oh, okay.
I don't think there's any shame in losing to the soon-to-be 3-time defending Super Bowl champs. But you cannot have your fan base go absolute scorched earth napalm on the Bills and Josh Allen these last 2 weeks in this MVP online turf war between Ravens fans and Bills fans and then lose that game.
What? So it's AFC Championship game or bust because the fan bases are talking trash to each other? Okay, man. I don't know. I don't know what to tell you.
And then, where you have lost, this is a spot where you have more Pro Bowlers than any team in the league. Derrick Henry's been unbelievable.
Yeah.
Lamar's having one of the greatest, I'm told, seasons any quarterback's ever had. DVOA has this Ravens team as the 5th greatest team in NFL history. For the record, they had last year's Ravens team as the 4th greatest team in NFL history. I'm not telling Aaron Schatz his algorithm needs to be tweaked, but maybe you're overvaluing the Ravens a bit. Regardless, you can't lose in round 1 or round 2 if you're them. Next, quietly awesome, Minnesota Vikings.
Absolutely.
A few years ago, the
Higher,
Vikings had a gaudy record.
Be higher
We didn't really talk about them because we didn't believe in them. This year, the Vikings have an awesome record. I do believe in them. We don't really talk about them. Probably are bad on that. I think the Vikings are going to win this weekend, be the 1 seed, and all of a sudden, we're going to be hearing skull chants in the NFC Championship game as they try to reach the Super Bowl.
I agree. I think the Vikings are the best team in the NFC. I think they are going to the Super Bowl. That's my pick. See if I'm wrong, but I really like the Vikings.
Hot team, hot seat. Sorry, Sirianni. This is the life of Philadelphia.
And the Vikings should be higher than the Eagles. The Vikings should be really at the top. I would. Well, I'll talk later.
Head
Hot
coach.
seat.
So here's why I say that. Brew, you think the Packers could beat them in round?
Yes, absolutely.
Man, I think he made the right decision on the Saquon thing, and I don't even know if it's his decision. But if they were to lose in round 1 in back-to-back years, I don't know what happens. I also think they're awesome and should be in the NFC Championship game, maybe at home, probably on the road. But they're in a very weird spot once again for different reasons this postseason. Perfect season. Here's question mark. Here's what I mean. So they did deny the Chiefs their perfect season. But if we were to script for Josh Allen to have a chance to become the media's QB1, this would be the process. Deny Patrick Mahomes a perfect season, that's a little bonus. Then win league MVP. And then what if the playoff route is this? Beat Joe Burrow in round 1, they could be playing them. Beat Lamar in round 2, they should be playing them. Beat Patrick in round 3 in his building,
he would get
and then go win the Super Bowl, he would get it.
Yeah.
And so and deliver the Bills their first championship ever, that would be a perfect season for Buffalo. It's all in front of them. Rested and disrespected. I mean, I guess they're 15-1 by dumb luck. They don't have that many good players. Mahomes isn't carrying them. They only have one good player on defense. I can't figure it out. By the way, Trent McDuffie not making the Pro Bowl might be more outrageous than Patrick not making it, but that's fine. Just add it to the bulletin board. Wait, we already did that.
Okay. Nobody's saying. Let me scroll back a little bit. Let's get the tears on the screen. Okay. Nobody's saying the Chiefs are a bad team. They have the best record in the league. I could see the argument putting them at the top in the tiers. I'm not going to argue against it. I don't think they're the best team in football. I think they are probably the top 3. And I think Buffalo's too high. As a Bills fan, it pains me to say I don't think they're the second best team in the NFL. Their defense is so suspect. Anybody can go out there and have a good game against them. Now, they are getting healthier. A lot of their guys in the secondary especially are coming back for the playoffs. Hopefully that'll make things better. A lot of those guys played in that Rams game. That's where they got hurt. And a lot of those guys played against the Dolphins, and the Dolphins moved the ball at will on the Bills in that second matchup in Buffalo, where the Bills won because they had the ball last. I would put the Ravens and the Bills probably in the same tier. Advantage goes to the Ravens because the Ravens really cleaned their clock. Now, the Bills had some injuries on offense that game. The Bills also had not acquired Amari Cooper yet when they played Baltimore. And the Bills, I don't know if you guys remember this game, because I'm a Bills fan, so I watched it. There was at one point in the game, the Bills were coming back in the game. It was 21-10, but the Bills had the ball and they were driving, and they were in Baltimore territory. For whatever reason, And this is just one play, don't get me wrong, but this killed all the momentum they had going into this game. For whatever reason, they decided to run a trick play. They ran a trick play, and the Bill it was like a running play, like a pitch to the running back, where then Allen went out to catch a pass, and it was like a screen pass. It wasn't even like he was going deep, and Baltimore just stuffed them in their tracks, knocked them out of field goal range. They ended up punting, and they lost all their momentum in that play. I think if Allen would have audibled out of that play and just ran the ball or did anything other than that play, it would have, maybe the game would have went a little differently. If the running back that got the ball realized, hey, I shouldn't throw this ball, there's defenders near me, and just take the tackle, maybe momentum would have stayed on their side and the game would have been a little better. But it was such a lopsided game, and the little momentum they had in that game went out the window when they ran that play. I feel like if they would have just not ran that play, the game would have been more competitive. It wouldn't have been a blowout. It might have, let's say it gets to 21-18. Whole different ball game. Whole different ball game after that. So I would put, okay, let's say for the argument, because Kansas City's got the best record, but they're at the top. I would put Minnesota here. I would put them at number 2. I'm really high on Minnesota this year. I think they're going to beat Detroit. They're going to get the number 1 seed. I think they're going to go to the Super Bowl. I really like Minnesota. On this seat here, this is where I would put, I'd probably put Buffalo and Baltimore here, and then drop the Eagles to this seed, this area here. Then then you got the Lions. I don't have a problem with the rest of it. I think if Baltimore, I think if Cincinnati somehow weasels their way into the playoffs, that's it. Cancel Christmas in Buffalo, because that's it. I know Christmas just happened. Cancel next year's Christmas. I really think Cincinnati just has Buffalo's number. But if Denver does what they should do and wins against Kansas City's backups, I think Buffalo can handedly beat Denver in the playoffs. I think Green Bay is better than Tampa and the Rams, the two teams that one of them they're probably going to play. So I would not be surprised if Green Bay ends up advancing to the second round of the playoffs and then has to go on the road to Minnesota. And like I said before, that's a division game. The teams know each other. It's hard to play the same team 3 times in 1 year. Don't be surprised if Green Bay beats Minnesota. I think Minnesota will beat them, but that's also, of course, if they end up being the lowest seed, because I think Minnesota's getting the 1 seed. The Chargers aren't going to go to Baltimore and win. Sorry, it's not going to happen. We're going to see the Chargers at the 6th seed go to Baltimore, and they're going to lose. And I think if it's a Pittsburgh 5, Houston 4, I think Houston's done. I really do. But yeah, these 2 teams, that's too bad. Too bad for the Falcons, and whatever, Miami. You garbage organization. I hate the Dolphins, for those of you who don't know. Let me know in the comments below, what do you think? I could play a little more of this video, but if you want to watch the video in its full and see what Brew and Wilds has to say, go ahead and click the description below. I have the video down there. Okay, thanks for watching, guys. Happy New Year, and I'll see you on the next one.